Thank you so much for being with us today. We are so grateful to be joined by our special guest at our listening session today, Alvaro Bedoya, Federal Trade Commissioner. So let's start off by giving a warm welcome. Before we jump in any further, though, we need to say special thank you to our hosts at their wonderful farm here, wonderful Farmers Union members, so supportive of family farm work all over the state, and such a fantastic presence in our local community here, the Griffune family. And Yvonne, stand up, please. Just wanted to remind people of some great upcoming things happening in the Farmers Union world before we dive into our discussion today. We have a number of things happening that I wanted to make you aware of. One fun item happening in just a couple weeks. We're doing a Farmers Union Day at the ballpark happening on June 28th. So join Farmers Union members at the iCubs game, June 28th, at 5 o'clock. We'll start with the picnic, and then the game will start at 6 o'clock. So you check your inboxes and register for that. We're going to have a great time with some good Farmers Union fellowship. That's June 28th. Wanted to mention a couple of things happening in July. One program that the Farmers Union is very proud to be putting on this year is some peer-to-peer networking dealing with farmer mental health issues. We all know the farmers are under a tremendous amount of stress for all sorts of reasons. Some of them we'll talk about today, but for all sorts of reasons. And we are looking forward to putting on a program, a project, which will train some of our Farmers Union folks to be good resources in their community, to be good listeners, to understand what good resources are available for members of their community regarding mental health issues. And this is a federal grant that we're very proud to be executing. We've had to adjust our calendar accordingly. As you understand, a lot of federal projects have had to do. We anticipate that we will be doing some a training with the fine folks at Iowa State University. We're looking for that to start to happen July 24th and 25th before these folks are sent back into their communities to be good resources, to be good listeners for their community. So if you're interested in being a part of this and receiving some very basic training to be a good resource in your community, let us know. So we'd be happy to include you in the cohort of Farmers Union members doing this work. I also wanted to mention that July 26th will be the Iowa Farmers Union Barn Party. It'll be taking place in Elkhart again this year. July 26th, we're going to have a great time. In addition to that, Farmers Union will have a large presence at the Iowa State Fair again this year. We'll have a booth in the Agriculture Building just down the line from the Butter Cow. And then, of course, we will have an Iowa Farmers Union Day at the fair with a large presence on the main concourse of the fair on the first Sunday of the fair as well. So look for opportunities to get involved in that as well. I also wanted to mention a couple other things, but before we do anything else, I think everyone is in the room now, so I can make sure I can get all our introductions right. Let's have our Farmers Union staff stand up and raise their hand. We have a few here today. Deborah Bunka. And John Bones, our education director. And our interim executive director, Matt Russell. Very proud of the work that they're doing. And I think they're all in the room now. I wanted to introduce our Iowa Farmers Union board members who are with us today. And you'll hear from some of them with some of our testimony. But I want to start with our Vice President, Ryan Marquardt. Ryan? Jerry Roseman? Mike Carter? Karen Barley? Josh Hansky? And John Gilbert. Oh, I'm sorry, and Berlene will be here. Thank you, Berlene. Now, there's someone else who's here, Haley Summers as well. Thank you. So my name is Aaron Lehman, and I farm just down the road from here, and I serve as president of the Iowa Farmers Union. It's a pleasure to be here today. It's a pleasure leading a group that is so dedicated to family farming, to sustainable agriculture, to thriving rural communities, and to healthy landscapes. We all know what an important part the Federal Trade Commission plays in those priorities. And we are very proud of the progress that the Federal Trade Commission has made in recent years to make sure that rural folks, that family farmers are getting a fair shake in the marketplace. And I'm going to sit down for just a second. Just a couple of accomplishments that I wanted to highlight before we begin our discussion. The FTC successfully sued to block the $24 billion merger between Kroger's and Albertsons, a deal the agency, and if that would have gone through, we know how much that would have meant in raised prices, store closures, reduced compensation for unionized workers, and even a greater discrepancy for what farmers get out of the food dollar. So we're very grateful for the work the Federal Trade Commission has done there. Another thing I wanted to highlight, and we'll talk about all these issues in further detail today, you know that the Federal Trade Commission has worked to combat unlawful restrictions on consumers' ability to repair the products that they buy. And that means all aspects of our economy. But the agency, the Federal Trade Commission, recently sued Deere & Company, along with 5 other states, over its use of unfair practices that have driven up the cost of equipment repair while depriving farmers the ability to make timely repairs on their own equipment. The right to repair is paramount, and we're very happy that the Federal Trade Commission is following up their work that they did with Weber, with Harley Davidson, with Westinghouse, and taken this action against John Deere. And in fact, I just got off a phone call yesterday morning with one of the fine lawyers at the Federal Trade Commission who was asking about our farm and our equipment and issues related to that. And they're looking for more conversations with Iowa farmers and with independent repair technicians around the state of Iowa and around the country. And so if you are interested in helping out in a very easy way, in a very important way, the litigation team would love to talk to you. So please reach out to me, reach out to Alvaro. We'll give you the contact information. We're going to be sharing this more widely as these discussions continue on this very important action to make sure farmers have rights to repair their own equipment. Okay, but so that's just a piece of some of the fantastic work that the Federal Trade Commission does. Our fine guest, Alvaro Bedoya, was sworn in May of 2022 as commissioner, and he is serving that role faithfully and very, very well. He's been especially interested in how the FTC can help people living paycheck to paycheck. He spends as much time as he can meeting small business owners, working people, community leaders, both in urban America and in rural America. Before he was confirmed, he founded the Center on Privacy and Technology at Georgetown Law, and he established the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee on Privacy as its very first chief counsel. In those roles, he helped pass laws to stop the abuse of face surveillance technology and unrestricted sharing of people's information with national security and law enforcement agencies. And much of his work on privacy focuses on the importance to unpopular religious and ethnic minorities. His essay on the subject, Privacy as Civil Right, is featured in many textbooks in U.S. law schools today. He's a naturalized citizen born in Peru, and he co-founded the Esperanza Education Fund, the first status-blind college scholarship for immigrant students in the D.C. area and Maryland and Virginia. And he was a field researcher for the International Labor Organization Special Action Program to combat forced labor. And he wrote exposés on debt bondage and other forms of forced labor in South America. He's practiced privately with Wilmer Cutler Pickering, and he has served on the nonprofit boards of the Hispanic Bar Association and of the District of Columbia. He holds his degree from Harvard and his JD from Yale Law School, and he served on the Journal there. He currently lives in Rockville. Yes. And we are so grateful that he's come back to Iowa. One of the first things he did after joining the Federal Trade Commission was to talk to Iowa farmers.
I think it was 3 years ago.
3 years ago, yeah. with some of you in this room. So we are so privileged to have him here. I'm going to ask you if you could give some background and observations first, and then we will ask some people who have prepared comments to share with us, and then we'll open up for further comments as we get started. So without any further delay, let's give Alvaro Bedoya another warm Iowa Farmers Union.
Thank you so much, Aaron, Matt, everyone from the Iowa Farmers Union, Josh. Thank you, Levon, and the Perfume family for hosting us. As we were talking, this was reminding me of Polyface Farm, of all the different animals you have here, how you raise them, the work you do. I also want to make sure I thank this gentleman back here, Max Miller, and his wonderful partner in life, his wife, Amanda. Their 3 kids are here joining us. Max started out as my colleague at the Federal Trade Commission, but now he's one of my best friends in the world. And I kicked Teddy out of his bedroom last night. He had to sleep on the couch. So I'm sorry, man. I'm grateful for that. So I think it probably makes sense to give you a little bit of a sense of why I'm back here and why I think it's so important to be here, despite some of the lively things going on in DC nowadays. So this started for me at that meeting that we had a little under 3 years ago, I guess. I think it was like a meeting room at this hotel. It was the National State Attorneys General Convention, I think, there. And you were there, Aaron, Josh, you were there, Levon, you were there, Mr. Gilbert, you were right there, you were there. And I was joined by Max, by my colleague, Noah Phillips, who was then a Republican commissioner in office at the time. And I cannot tell you how much I thought about the things you shared with me that day. You talked about how there used to be, a couple different places to process your cattle. And now, maybe there are 2 if you're lucky, but often there's 1. And then during COVID, those be shut down, and you have to put down a whole warehouse full of cattle. I remember we met a gentleman who talked about how there used to be 12 vendors to buy seeds from, and now there were 2. We talked about right to repair and how you can't repair the tractor that you own, this multi-$100,000 piece of equipment. You got to take it down to the dealership, where of course it costs so much more. We talked about how you used to see 40 cents on every dollar at the grocery store, and now it's like 15 cents, 20 cents, something like that. But I think honestly, the thing that stuck with me the most, and I forget exactly, I think maybe you said it, Levon. I think you said something like it's like getting picked apart by a chicken. What did you say?
Farming is like being picked to death by a chicken.
Picked to death by a chicken. And I think someone else in the room said, we're standing on an ice cube, we've got a noose around our necks. I mean, it was something that has just sat with me for 3 years. And one thing that I'd like to do as a commissioner is go back to the places that where I have meetings like that, where the scope of the problems that people are facing just hits you right in the face, to be honest with you. And so in the intervening time, what have we done? You mentioned some of the amazing work our staff has done. So we brought a case against John Deere. One of the last things we did was to bring a case against John Deere saying, you cannot do this. People own their tractors. They have a right to be able to fix them. We blocked Kroger and Albertsons. We blocked that merger successfully. Many towns across the country would have taken the biggest grocery store in town and merged it with the next biggest grocery store in town. No surprise what's going to happen when that happens, right? Prices go up, wages go down, and you got another power buyer, or even more powerful power buyer that sets the terms sets the prices for buying. I think there were two things that I would add to the list, and I'm not bragging about me, I'm bragging about our staff. We brought a case against Corteva and Syngenta we allege that they made it much harder to sell generic crop control products, making it more expensive, obviously, for farmers. We also revived a little known law called the Robinson-Patman Act. And so I'm sure a lot of you have had the experience where growing up you had an independent grocery, you had an independent pharmacy, and now all those groceries and pharmacies are closing, being replaced by chains, or they're not being replaced at all. Now, there's a lot of different things at play that caused that. One of those things was the fact that there was this law called the Robinson-Patman Act that fell into disfavor with the kind of Reagan Revolution in the 1980s, where there was this big emphasis on efficiency and this idea that the law requires you to provide a level playing field for those small retailers. That fell out of fashion. It fell out of favor. And so we revived that law. We brought a lawsuit against Southern Glazers, which is the biggest liquor distributor in the country. And we brought a case against Pepsi, which was this key supplier. And we alleged that they treated this one big power buyer, this one big box store, in a way they didn't treat the others. And unfortunately, that case was just withdrawn by the majority. And so our staff has been, I think they've been doing amazing work. But, as I mentioned, there has been a change in administration. And so when I think I'm a commissioner right now, but I have to add an asterisk there, because there is, on March 18th, the president, I got an email, I was at my daughter's gymnastics class, and I got an email purporting to fire me. But there is a 90-year-old Supreme Court precedent, 9-0, that says you can only be fired for cause. And this email went out of its way to not cite any causes. And so right now we are in the courts to clarify that. But I think with UW, we were talking earlier about, how's this going to go? I'll be honest, I don't know how it's going to go. We could win, we could lose. But the reason I am here is I am still trying to do my job to the best of my abilities. I can't access my files, I can't access my computers, but I can meet with you. I can try to use the little attention I can draw to highlight the issues you're facing, and I can try to continue doing that work. And so no matter what, the thing I want you to know is court could rule against us soon. I could run out of money to finance this endeavor very soon, because I'm here on my own dime. But no matter what, I will continue doing this work, whether it's at FTC or in a nonprofit, for example, trying to bring these exact same kinds of cases, which is something too few nonprofits do. So. So with that, I'm going to shut up, because I'm here to listen to you, hear about what's on your mind. And the key questions is, what is the undone work? And I'm sure that with all those cases, they sound great when I say them, but they're just small pieces of this bigger puzzle. And so I would love to know, what are you still facing? What are you wake up in the morning, you worry about something, what is that thing? And so that's what I'd love to hear about from folks today. And I will have lots of questions. You will tell me when to be quiet. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're going to get started with the conversation now at this point. And we have some people who have been able to prepare a few remarks in advance, and we'll hear from them first. We'll ask you to come up to the front. We only have one microphone, and I'll hold the microphone to make it easier for everyone. But if you could come up to the blue tape up here and share your remarks, and we'll proceed in that way. And we'll start with a few people who have already prepared a few remarks to begin with. And the first, I think, is Levon, our wonderful host here today. So thank you.
I'm going to talk about grocery stores, sort of. Iowa has 43 incorporated cities, second only to Texas. And the 10 largest grocery store chains in Iowa have 406 stores in 312 of these cities. So a third of Iowa cities have a large grocery store with an assortment of choices. They're spaced evenly. I looked at a map. They're spaced pretty evenly across Iowa. It seems like maybe in every county, but they kind of avoid the border counties on all four sides. USDA reports that 76 counties nationwide are without any grocery stores, and 34 of those are in the Midwest and Great Plains. And it seems like feast or famine.
So sorry, how many counties are without a grocery store?
76.
76 of the 99 counties are without a
No,
grocery store?
76 across the United States.
Oh, got it, okay, got it.
Yeah, but 34 of those are located in the Midwest or the Great Plains.
Uh-huh.
So it seems like feast or famine. Well, I personally can be at Aldi, Costco, Fairway, or Quick Star within 3 minutes, or in Sam's Club, Target, Walmart, 2 Hy-Vees, and yet another Fairway store, and any number of convenience stores and dollar stores that sell groceries within 12 minutes or less. My friend in Shelby County has to drive 25 minutes to buy groceries, and to Omaha, an hour away to buy anything organic or any fresh produce.
Yeah.
What she usually finds is wilted vegetables when she gets to her local grocery store. Many Iowa towns have lost all their independent grocers, and that can make it difficult for older people to remain independent and stay in their home if they can't get a grocery store, a grocery store. My neighbor works for an independent grocer who's 90 years old. He has the only grocery store in Slater, Iowa. He still grinds his hamburger, offers potting plants for gardening, and is a community staple. The store doesn't scan their goods. Therefore, the Independent Grocer Association they purchase through doesn't send them any notifications of sale items they are offering. So he gets slammed because he's not improving with the times. I once started to start a grocery store in downtown Des Moines through a nonprofit I worked for. And I can tell you that the profit margin is even worse than farming, about 1 to 2%. Independent groceries must love what they do because no one's going to get rich on 1 or 2% of profit. When my husband Craig and I were first married, we had 3 meat packers who would bid on our fat cattle. You could get bids from all 3 and usually end up with a pretty decent price. As time went on, mergers eliminated 2 of those buyers. The one buyer would tell us that our cattle needed more weight on them, or they were uneven, and to feed them 1 more month. And when he came back in a month, he would dock us on the price because they were too heavy.
Oh.
26 years ago, my son wanted a 4-wheeler, and he needed $500. So he came to Mom. Yes, the one walking around.
Yes.
I don't know. The one hanging his head over there by the door. I told him to find a way to make $500 because I wasn't going to be buying him a 4-wheeler. He and his friend did a little research and decided to raise pastured poultry. They built a chicken tractor, bought 100 chickens, fed them for 8 weeks, sold them for $5 each to the neighbors and at the Ankeny Farmers Market, which at that time consisted of 7 card tables on 3rd Street, and thought he would have $500. When he got finished growing his 100 chickens for $5, he forgot to add in the feed costs in his estimation, and he lost $11. That was good with his mom. I was okay with that. Being a good farm kid, Nick bought 200 chickens, borrowed the neighbor's grinder mixer, bought an antibiotic-free feed ration at the elevator, used his dad's non-GMO corn, raised the price to $8 a bird because he had a value-added product now, and he made a profit, which the boys invested into more chicken tractors And they never did get their four-wheeler. A win for Mom. My husband Craig, he thought Nick was doing all right with his chicken business. And I told him we could sell his beef if he knocked off the antibiotics and the hormones and made sure that the feed was non-GMO. And so he did that, and that's when I started buying his beef at Chicago Board of Trade prices, which he couldn't have gotten locally, and selling it. And soon, with the help of 4-H projects and 4 kids, we were selling beef, pork, chicken, turkey, and lamb. And our kids are still raising the livestock, and I buy the animals from them at a fair price. Iowans like to claim they feed the world, but the pandemic proved to us with bare store shelves that Iowa can't even feed Iowa very easily. I have 12 deep freezers, there's 6 of them over there, full of meat. And when I walked into the Fairway store and saw that stainless steel where the meat used to be in the grocery case, it made me nervous. While many Iowans fell on economic hard times during the pandemic, I eventually had empty freezers with bare shelves also. As a stroke of luck, I called the locker to reserve 2 locker dates a month for the entire year. That wasn't any kind of genius, that was just pure luck. And many people ordered halves and quarters just to be sure that they would have a supply of meat. What we discovered was that Iowa had lost a lot of their hometown lockers over the years. There used to be one in nearly every town. Many of the lockers we had left had fallen into disrepair or in need of updates. The USDA offered loans and grants to help lockers who were interested in the opportunity to update and also get training to become federally inspected. And the locker that I use for my beef, pork, and lamb did that. I sell my meat directly from the shop we're sitting in, and at the Ankeny Farmers Market, where Craig and my daughter are today, and at the Iowa Food Co-op, which is an online co-op.
Uh-huh.
And
Ankeny Food Co-op is called?
Iowa
Food Co-op.
Iowa Food Co-op, which it offers the ability to sell to producers from all over Iowa. I think they have around 85 producers, and it is across the state, and a wide variety of things that you can get. Most of our egg customers just come here and serve themselves. Case will tell them what to do. and usually there's somebody in the shop working on things. So if they need help to buy meat or they have a question, they can get it answered usually. I'm usually in the house. I watch my 2 little granddaughters Monday through Friday, so it takes us about 20 minutes to get our shoes on and get across the yard. It's easier to ask the dog. It's good to know where your food comes from, how it was raised, what it was fed, the environmental impact of the farming practices to raise the animals, and the families and communities you're sustaining with your cash instead of the corporations. Policymakers can make a difference by being sure that the policies they promote are sustaining family farms and food systems that are environmentally sound, health promoting, and locally owned and controlled.
Thank you. I will have plenty of questions, but it may make sense to go through whatever you prefer.
Yeah, let's do that.
Excellent.
Yep. Okay. Next, I think Sean is going to share a few comments.
Last year, it was a warm, windy, sunny day. The combine was ready to go, and it was the first day of harvest. All the hard work and agronomy decisions built up to this moment. As I turned on the combine to hear its roar, the roar became more of a whimper. Today was not going to be the first day of harvest. For such a sophisticated machine, its depressing a simple error code puts the whole machine in limp mode. This error code meant the circuit board was fried. With the soybeans being so dry, we were losing money by the minute due to the drop in moisture because of the hot, windy, and dry conditions. Time was of the essence. This was an issue only the local John Deere dealership, which is a loose term at this point, because the dealership is 30 minutes away, could fix. Due to John Deere's monopoly power and lack of right to repair legislation, even if there were closer independent repair shops, we had to rely on a John Deere technician. Dad called the dealership, and the technician did not come until hours after the call due to other farmers needing help. Once he arrived, he diagnosed the problem and told us what part was needed. While we could wait a couple days for it to arrive, John Deere knows farmers' emotions. We ended up paying extra to get the part the next day due to our time crunch in getting out the already too dry soybeans. This extortion and paying for the technician to come down both days to diagnose and fix the problem further lowered my already low profit margins. Since John Deere has no serious competition, we lost time waiting, which meant lost yield potential, and we lost money because John Deere could charge us more because that is their business plan. We had no other options. So how did John Deere get to this dominating spot? Monopoly power. According to Farm Action's recent report, Kings Over the Necessaries of Life, the following facts make their dominating power clear. John Deere sells as much machinery as its next 8 largest competitors combined. While Deere's gathering of market power accelerated in the 1980s due to the relaxation of antitrust controls on corporate mergers, which then drove a reconsolidation in the machinery industry. This has led to Deere using its market power, mandating these dealerships to sell their products exclusively and pressured them to consolidate. When I was growing up, there was Keystone Implement, Waterloo Implement, and Waverly Implement, all around where I lived. As it now stands today, all 3 of these implement dealerships are now owned by P&K Midwest, with stores in Iowa, Illinois, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. The other 2 closest dealerships are owned by Van Wall, which has 35 locations in 6 Midwest states. In 1996, there were 3,400 John Deere dealership locations. By 2021, only 1,544 remained. And with over 1,400 of those dealerships were owned by a big dealer, which means they own 5 or more dealerships under their control. To fix my issue, the software and tools to diagnose and fix this problem are only provided to licensed dealers. This makes it inaccessible to farmers and independent repair shops. John Deere can charge higher than competitive prices for their services due to their monopoly power. Now, as Deere can continue to charge more each year, this is less money staying in the farmers' pockets and less money they can spend in their rural communities. If states and the federal government pass right to repair legislation, this would help farmers or closer independent repair shops to fix the equipment sooner with better service and reduced costs. Giving farmers the ability to fix the equipment they bought is their right. When more people have the knowledge to repair equipment, more businesses can stay open, and more rural economies can be supported. This would help farmers like me get back into the field to harvest an already too dry soybean crop. Now, unfortunately, last year's harvest was my last harvest, and the last harvest for my 5th generation farm family. Both of my grandpas were farmers, and with me being done through the monopolization of machinery in the machinery industry and across the agriculture industry, from seed to chemicals to fertilizer to grain processors, I am the last dangler to ever farm in Tama County. I do not want...
Could you repeat that last? Are you the last?
I am the last dangler
Yeah.
to ever farm in Tama County. I do not want another farmer to go through the pain I felt when I had to call my dad to tell him I was done farming. It is unfair to them, and it's unfair to their communities for these corporate firms to hollow out Iowa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up on our list is Josh Manson.
Commissioner Bedoya, thank you for being here in Iowa. I'm going to keep mine short after following Sean because I think he said it best. My family obviously has been in agriculture for generations. And like most people in commodity ag, we buy commercial fertilizer. It's vital to our operation and part of our patriotic duty to care for our soil. We have three main fertilizers that we put down to grow corn: nitrogen, phosphate, and potassium, and P&K. And we know that there's not many companies that sell this fertilizer anymore. Just a few companies control this market. And when we're shopping for our fertilizer, we only shop for transportation because the price is the same no matter where we go. So it's like which dealer is closer and what makes the most sense logistically for the operation. So there's no competition to drive down the price of fertilizer. And for one of our great land grant institutions, I'm going to show you this chart. I think it speaks volumes and it speaks for itself. It follows the price of anhydrous ammonia, one of our main fertilizers we use commercially to grow our corn crop. And it follows the price of number 2 yellow corn. And when I show you this, you're going to say, why is that so closely correlated? And I'll give you this chart.
Yeah.
And you can show everybody actually if you want to.
Thank you. Oh,
That just tracks the price perfectly.
yeah,
So it's like, we know these things track.
yeah,
We look at the chart.
yeah.
You know, and these questions need to be asked and they need to be answered.
Mhm.
Because, like I said, those products are vital to our operation to be able to survive. And that's the other thing that, you know, besides seed, fertilizer, those are the things that pinch your margins. And either how you're going to make it, you're not going to make it. And price of fertilizer has been so high, there's been certain farmers that just forego putting fertilizer down, and that hurts the operation long term. And we're having to make these long term decisions. So, again, appreciate you being here. It's very important you're here. Thanks for all the work you've been doing.
Thank you.
And yeah.
Can I ask you 2 questions?
Sure.
Okay. So, let me just write one thing down. Don't put that. So, first about this chart. So, we've got blue is the anhydrous ammonia price and dotted yellow the corn price. Can you help me understand? I should know this, I think, but why the fact that they track is problematic? What is it telling you that I should know? Because I don't think I have it just yet. I think you explained this to me 3 years ago and I forgot.
Sure.
I apologize.
Sure.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You got it. Yeah. Okay, so when the price of corn goes up, right, so now all of a sudden farmers, make money in the good years, you save for the good years and then you spend in the bad.
Right.
Well, now all of a sudden the price of corn goes up to, that chart almost $7 a
Yeah.
bushel. Well, we should be making some pretty good dollars in coin at that point.
Yeah.
What is the fertilizer business?
So you just check that.
They jack it up and they take your margin.
Yeah.
So we had 3 years ago, we had the price of anhydrous, and I had to book this back in August. So that's a whole other logistical problem because that price gets locked in. So they come to you, hey Josh, we got the fertilizer, you can book the price now,
Yeah.
and it's going to be the best price you're going to get.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? That product goes on in the fall.
Yeah.
For the next spring,
Yeah.
so we've got to go through the entire growing season. And
Yeah.
I may not sell that crop for the 18 months.
Yeah.
So you can see the cash flow crunch that potentially creates. That product right there, at one point, I'm saying 3 years ago, was over $1,000 a ton. And 3 or 4 years before that, it was half of that price.
Okay. Wow.
And here's the thing I always like to say: was there magic beans in the pun intended there?
Right.
Was there magic beans in this fertilizer? No, it's the same. It's the same exact product.
And how many suppliers are there for this product? So green anhydrous ammonia.
I know Coke Industries is one. There might be just a couple others.
But you're saying their prices are always all the same.
Literally, my decision making is who is the closest to our operation. And I mean, it's so negligible. It's not like, hey, what's your price? It's not like, what is the transportation cost going to be to get to the farms?
Coke Industries, you said there were one other one? Or two?
I have to go look up the other.
Yeah, no, okay.
That's a big player.
Two or three total.
Yeah.
Got it. 2 or 3 total.
No different than the farm manufacturing and seed business, same thing.
Thank you.
And I would add, in some of the fertilizers Josh mentioned, really just won't.
Say more. So in which one? In nitrogen,
in potash
phosphate,
and potassium, potassium in particular. Yep.
Sorry, I know this anhydrous ammonia. Which one is it? Is
That's
that
so you've got your 3 big ones: nitrogen, phosphate, and potassium. So that'd be your N. Yep. Your nitrogen. Yep, your anhydrous is nitrogen.
nitrogen? Not yet. Got
If you want to get nerdy, it's called NH3. That converts to NH4. Do we want an agronomy lesson too?
it.
No.
Anhydrous ammonia. Got it. And with potassium, you said there's one supplier. Who's the supplier with potash?
Actually, it's the vast majority of that is being imported
From Canada.
From one company or
largely.
larger one?
That's a whole other issue.
Got it. Thank you very much.
You bet, appreciate it.
Do Iowa spend a load of money on an independent fertilizer thing by the Mississippi River?
Right.
And then it was sold to an Egyptian company who sold it.
The Koch brothers, yes.
Oh, wow.
That's
And
the
I
most
don't-
money I think we ever spent as a state on a project.
That's right. Okay, I'm gonna keep us moving on, and I think our next speaker is Tatum Watkins. Tatum Watkins. Thank you, Tatum.
Hello, my name is Tatum Watkins. I grew up on a farm in southwest Iowa that's been in our family for 5 generations. It's been a great experience for me. Now I attend Cornell College where I study political science, so I'm getting a little bit different lens into the world. But most of my best memories started on the farm. For me, living on the farm was especially important as I was born with a complex birth defect that made it so I spent a lot of my early life in a hospital. But when I was on the farm, life was normal. I got to do the same things as any of my other friends did, and some of my earliest memories are checking the pigs, of all things. Now, what's important to note, we don't have pigs anymore. By the time I was in elementary school, we didn't have pigs, because like many farm families, raising pigs in a sustainable way, as the market was trying to consolidate, was almost impossible. We wanted our pigs to be raised in a happy life. The motto of our farm is Pinhook Farm, a happy place to be a cow. We wanted it to be a happy place to be a pig too, but as the meatpacking industry has consolidated, it's forcing farmers into a situation where the pigs are right there and there are as many there as possible. Well, we wanted our pigs on pasture. That was proving to be almost impossible. Around the same time that we got rid of our pigs, my school district consolidated into another district. And as a result, there was a school district that was almost a 30-mile radius. I had friends that had to drive to school that was close to 45 minutes. And that was because that district was largely farm families. And it was farm families that suddenly were on small farms where there were lots of kids. And now, like many families we're seeing, all of a sudden it was big farms. And they had been possibly, one farmer was raising it for years and years and years because they couldn't get out. It was really tricky as that making sure that you can ensure sustainability oftentimes made it really difficult to ensure a positive transition. Let's see. I wasn't always aware of some of the intricacies of how that our family raised livestock. We also had cattle, and that's been the biggest thing of my life. Is we have always had cows, we still have cows, now we have sheep. But cows are a different thing. For us, we didn't see some of the same issues that maybe some of our neighbors did that were less diversified, because we had cows, we always had something going on to make sure that that was going to be sustainable. I didn't necessarily see the problems with the meatpacking industry until COVID. And I think that's when most people saw that. But I saw it through a different lens. Like Laban was saying earlier, a lot of small butcher shops and local meat processing plants were built. They had no space, and that's from things as simple as a fire in Kansas to, of course, all of the things that came with COVID. But for me, what I saw during that was that I had to help butcher a cow, or I guess a steer. It was awful. I never wanted to butcher a steer. At that time, I was 4 inches shorter than I am now. My dad decided, he's like, Tatum, we're going to butcher the cow today. And I said, are we? And this was a random November afternoon because he decided, well, it's cold enough today that even if, the refrigerator fails, we can make it work because he had to hang the cow. He built this weird little winch thing. I didn't like any minute of this. But it was what had to happen because we always drove about 40 minutes to the local nearest meat shop to have our cow processed. But he was completely full, and we all never had a problem getting in because generally for us it was just we'd send one steer in, and it was what we fed our family with. Yeah. But like many people, when COVID happened and suddenly the big meat processing plants were struggling, yes, they went to the smaller guys. And that's great, and I'm really grateful that the smaller operations were able to have that business from that, but that signified a problem with the lack of resilience in the system. And this lack of resilience wasn't just seen in meat processing plants. It can also be seen in our small schools closing. It can be seen in hospitals closing. And just so many smaller issues like that make it almost impossible for young people like me to return to our hometowns. I think in the day of remote work, there's a chance that maybe we have some way to revitalize small towns. But if nothing else, we still need to have those small farms, and we need opportunities for the smaller people. And the people that don't want their cows to, I think one thing that's important to remember is animals are sentient beings. They have feelings, they live lives. It's sickening for me to think about a cow having to live a sad life, and
Yeah.
one where that they're just, the goal is to get them in and out as quick as possible and butcher them as close to where they were raised, in not necessarily being as close to where they were raised as possible, but in almost a factory and industrial style manner. And I don't think that's a good system. And I think especially when we have a system that's dominated by only about 4 companies, then this is even more problematic, as all of a sudden there's no price discovery, there are less opportunities for that. And one thing I can remember, I loved growing up and going to the sale barn. That's a small thing, but to me it was a hustle bustle.
Yeah.
I always loved hearing this immediate moment where the people were talking about what their cow was going to go for. Now, of course, this was in the earlier stage of the whole thing, before it actually gets to the consumer. But I always thought that was cool. And I think that it's interesting the more that I've learned about food systems, understanding that this isn't necessarily how it happens at the actual feedlot stage.
Right.
And that's really, it hurts, it frustrates me to think about that. But either way, I think one thing that's important to remember is that as consolidation happens on the meatpacking level, it does affect the farmer downstream. And when it affects the farmer, it affects the school district. And I graduated in a class of 64. My dad graduated in a class of 150 in the same school district. But my district was now a 30-mile radius. His, probably 15, maybe less. Our small towns can't be sustainable in a system that doesn't allow for any sort of competition.
It's interesting. So I've learned a lot about chicken in this job. Not much of it good. None of it good, unfortunately. Learned a lot about cattle. Learned a lot about pigs and raising pork, producing pork. Sheep. Levon, we talked about it a little bit. Tell me about your sheep. Are you raising them for meat, for wool, both?
Yeah, so ours are for meat.
Okay.
My dad kind of had what I call a midlife crisis, and he bought a flock of Katahdins.
Okay.
Actually, they were from Al Gore's ranch,
that's
which
funny.
I think is my favorite story to tell.
Okay.
So we got a really good flock of sheep. They
Okay.
have great parasite resistance,
Okay.
but it has been a learning curve, and especially figuring out how to market them, I think has been tricky.
Okay.
Because that we end up there's a sale barn in Missouri close to us.
Okay.
We live on the Iowa-Missouri border.
Yeah.
We sell them there, but likely that next closest market that has a strong market for sheep
Yeah.
is clear up in Kelowna, Iowa,
Okay.
which is about 4 hours from my parents'
Okay.
house. And realistically, once we have more sheep, the plan is that they'll be sold there,
Yeah.
unless we can figure out a system for direct marketing.
Okay.
But the market for lamb is a little bit trickier, as we
Yeah.
found out. Not everyone is as open to trying it,
Right.
and we think it's great. But the biggest thing about sheep is it's allowed us to reduce our inputs of like any sort of chemicals onto the land.
Okay.
Because sheep eat broadleaf weeds, they eat different
Okay.
things than cows.
Okay.
So this year's been amazing for me. As coming home this spring, I was amazed the pastures look better than they ever have.
Why is that?
I think it's because of the sheep. And my dad says the same thing, because that they're eating the weeds that we don't want, but they're keeping the good things, and they don't.
They're not
like-
interested in
Exactly.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
they
fascinating.
eat, I think, some grass, but it's not as exciting to them as the weird, gnarly weeds.
Okay.
The cool thing about weeds is that their root system goes down so much farther and different than a lot of grass does.
Yeah.
So it's really good mineral systems, and it's like having the sheep has been so interesting,
Yeah.
and it's introduced this whole different aspect of husbandry and
Yeah.
caring for the animals, because they're also these kind of sweet little creatures in
Yeah.
a way that cows aren't, and I think they've really opened our operation up to something new.
So I don't even know if you know about this, Max. I spent a summer interviewing sheep herders in. You know about this? Okay. In California, Nevada, and there was a period of time when they're on the farm. There's a period of time they just took them out to pasture. And so is it the same thing here, or are they kind of always the same place?
To a degree, we're trying
Okay.
to run our sheep with our cattle,
Okay.
but sheep are really hard on fences, as it turns out.
Oh,
They
is that
like to
right?
escape,
Okay.
so we've had to replace a lot of our fence with woven wire
I thought they
fence.
just follow. They're actually trying to.
Wouldn't that be great?
Okay.
Well, they
Okay.
have a great flock mentality.
Okay,
They stay
okay.
together. If one of them wanders off, we ended up with a house sheep last year, as we called
Oh.
him, because we had one bottle lamb, and it was kind of a crummy spring and cold, and my mom didn't like going up every 4 hours to the barn to feed him, and she felt bad for him. So he came in and he'd run with the dogs every day. But he's made our entire flock of sheep way more sociable and
Yeah.
friendly, and likes to just hang out with them.
Oh.
And so as soon as we come up, he comes up, and then all the sheep
Okay.
follow. But they will, if they see a hole in the fence, they will escape,
Okay.
especially the lambs. And the other thing is like considerations of predators. We have a donkey that lives with our sheep as the like
Yes.
guard animal.
Yes.
But she also sometimes has to be removed because she gets a little feisty.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say they're interesting critters, but
Yeah,
there are
yeah,
lots of
okay.
additional considerations. We do keep them a little bit closer to our house than maybe like they don't go clear out to the back pastures like the cows will,
Okay.
just given the consideration for predators.
Okay. This is fascinating. Yeah, I had a glimpse into the sheep industry before, but this is all new information. This is
I
cool.
say we're just learning the ropes too. So,
Amazing. Thank you very much.
of course, thank you.
Oh, quick question, maybe Levon, you know this. How long does it take to bring a sheep to market? How long is the from birth to?
Which are the lamb?
Yeah,
6 months.
for a lamb.
Yeah.
And right, yeah, you don't want mutton, you don't want right. Okay, got it. You want lamb.
Correct. Oh, hi, I'm, actually, I can identify that truck over there with the new sorry. But anyway, I'm Jerry Roseman. I'm from Shelby County, Iowa, which is 85 miles straight west of here. And grew up on the farm over there. And then basically, I'm going to be 70 next month. And that's just saying this just to get a timeline in on here. I kind of went back and dug through history a little bit over there. And the year that I was born in Shelby County, there was 8,200 people in the county, and there were 2,100 farms. As of today, there's 12,000 population, and there's 800 farms. And when I was born, traditional livestock crop was about 86%. Equipment dealers, we had 11. There's 2 there now. The feed mill, grain dealers, we had 18. We have 3 now. Vet clinics, there was 8. We have 2 now. Sale barns, we had.
Mr. Jerry, I'm so sorry. These are really impactful numbers. Do you
Okay.
mind going back a couple?
Sure.
Yeah, because I
Okay,
want to get
sure.
into the details.
Okay. All right. Well, let's
I
go.
had you at 86%. And then
Okay, and now they're saying 10%, but that's kind of a fuzzy number in there. I mean, we have 1 dairy in the county,
Yeah.
and there's 15,000 cows in it. So
Oh, wow.
that
Okay.
really doesn't work with the percentage here.
Yeah.
But anyway, the equipment dealers,
11
there
and
was
2.
11 and
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
Feed mills, grain, whatever, there was 18.
So feed mills and grain mills?
Elevators,
Elevators, right.
basically, facilities. Now there's 3.
3. This is in Shelby County.
Shelby County.
Yeah.
Vet clinics, we had 8. Now there's 2. Sale barns,
And forgive me, I don't know what that is.
auction barns. Livestock auction barns.
Oh, got it. Where you
Yes.
sell it. Got it.
Yes,
Okay,
you
got
bring
it.
it to
Yeah,
local
yeah.
auction.
Barns. Got it.
Okay, we had 3.
Okay.
Now there's none.
Right.
There was 2 regional stockyards at that time, Omaha and Sioux City. And they're both gone. We even had in Harlan, we had a milk bottling plant, clear up into the late 60s almost. Now there's nothing there.
You have to forgive me. I'm so sorry. The Omaha and Sioux City. What was it? What was there?
They were the regional
The
stockyards.
regional stockyards. Yes.
Omaha was the second largest livestock marketplace in the whole United States.
Got it. So a
Yes.
sale barn is like a local.
Yes,
But
local.
regional stock barn is a
Yes.
stockyard. That's just a much
Much bigger.
Much bigger,
Yes,
okay, yeah.
yes. The Union stockyards in Omaha on any given day, at its height was 8,000-9,000 head of cattle and that many hogs and sheep and you name it. It was quite, for us little guys, that was the big trip, was when you
Right.
went down there for that.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, that was that. And then there was 2 creameries, none of that. We even had,
They're gone.
They're gone. And we even had a vegetable cannery right up until the early 60s over there with sweet corn and green beans and whatnot. And then we also had, at the time they came in the early 60s, is a fairly large pork slaughtering facility
Yeah.
there. And it lasted until they got gobbled up and eventually closed down. So basically, that's kind of some statistics out here.
Did you used to have someplace to process your cattle?
Yes, yes, ours went to Denison.
Okay. How many did you have growing up? And then how many do you have today?
When I opted out of farming in '85,
Yeah.
we were 400 and some sows, farrow to finish,
Okay.
and had a 900 head capacity feed yard.
Okay.
And we there's the other things besides the deal. But in 1985, I became a part-time farmer and a full-time truck driver. And hauled basically farm commodities, grains, fertilizers, feed ingredients, complete feeds. And I said my territory that I had was the Canadian border to the Rio Grande and the Mississippi River to the east slopes of the Rocky Mountains. There isn't a county in that area that I haven't been through over the years. I just quit it first of the year. 4 million miles is enough.
Wow.
So, but these statistics that what I just said is pretty much wherever you go, you see the same thing. The dynamics of what it is might be a little different, but it's just as things get tighter at the top and at the bottom, they just start disappearing. There's nothing, you pull through a little town, you can just see the decline. Usually the lumberyard left and maybe a gas station, and then the kiss of death was always a school. Whenever the schools closed down, that was it, kind of thing. But that was that part of the deal. But the other thing that I tell people is with what I was doing, I've seen the side of things out here that you don't normally see. You pull up to the front of a CFI in Sioux City up there, and the guard will let you in the manufacturing process. Me, I pull up there and I get told, don't touch anything back there, And through the years, I've also kind of gotten in trouble once in a while because I was told that I wasn't asking truck driver questions. They wanted to know if I was a spy, basically. And I said, no, I'm just a farmer that's still a farmer at heart, But as progressed, the other thing that was noticeable, it didn't make any difference when we were hauling something from the farm to the terminal, or picking up fertilizer off of the Mississippi River or off of the Houston Harbor. Generally 3 or 4 was the same names, regardless of whether it's going in or out.
Wait. So 3 names of what?
Well, of these large companies that we're talking about.
Got it. Yeah.
Cargill is the biggest one.
Right.
Cargill's the biggest one in the world.
Right.
And the others, through the years, they change back and forth. All of a sudden they disappear, or they show up as another LLC or something, or we did a lot of this deal, what is called the 007. We'd load up a load, and we'd start down the road part way, and they'd give us a different invoice. They didn't know where it was coming from, and they didn't know where it was going to, sort of thing, But then again, it's just hiding all the stuff out here. Now, as far as with these other people have talked about, everything that this has happened out here. The fertilizer, basically, Nutrien, CFI, and Coke. They're the big 3 out here. The Nutrien is the biggest one out here. They are the largest producer of fertilizer in the world. Potash here in this country, 75% of it comes out of Canada. Now, Josh was talking about the pricing thing. And this is a deal we've seen over the years. Right now, the warehouses are full. Their sidings are full of rail cars. They're not going to price it. They won't price it. It sits there.
Who is they?
Nutrien, CFI, Coke.
Okay.
They're sitting there waiting to see what the traffic will bear. They're watching the corn crop. They're watching the grains of what's going on and see how it will go.
Yeah.
And at some spot, eventually somebody sneezes, and then the price sets, and then you haul. Generally, it's in the July years when they finally break loose for the quote fall building season for application. And then you get into late December, same thing again. You're trying to get things lined up for the next spring. They won't price anything out till February, probably. And then instead of 2 trucks reasonably hauling it, there's 100 sitting there trying to move the stuff through. The other thing that's happened though with this consolidation up here and down here is that in the middle here, farmers are also getting squeezed because this large, these 3 here basically have forced your local co-ops, your separate entities to form buying groups. Buying groups, you know. Coke would rather work with 100,000 ton orders than 100,000 ton orders, that sort of thing. But also what's happening with that, if you watch out here, it's how, and I've seen this over the years where I haul into a little place in South Dakota and all of a sudden I pick up a load in Tulsa, I take it up to that town, the address looks good, but the name doesn't look right. Pull in there and there's the co-op whatever from next county over, and there's like they got fireboat. You come in and you ask, well, what happened? Well, they said, we were here getting along kind of okay, but they came over and basically told our board, either you merge with us or we'll put one up across town and put you out of business. Here again, they get their base up bigger, but also the best way to deal with competition is to buy it and get rid of it. Cargill in the feed business is just huge in that. They have feed mills all over, and Nutrien did the same thing out here in the United States. Once upon a time, it was PCS, which was Potash Corporation of Saskatchewan, and Agrium was their retail up there. Nobody knew that. In this country, it was PCS was the wholesale out here, but CPS, Crop Production Services, was their retail end out here. And they literally have bought anything that they could find in that whole area that I had. They didn't care. In fact, we had a couple, my children had a classmate that his job with CPS was just to go out, count nurse tanks, put a value on them, and buy it. That was the way it worked. And then 4 years ago, I know an individual that helped. At that spot, PCS decided we don't have to worry about it. Everybody can know how big they are. And all of a sudden, these 3 entities turned into Nutrien.
Wow.
And so down in this country, we've got Nutrien's retail, and they've got their wholesale. And I don't quite understand how that works. But this is what's going on. And then down in this country, you know, New Co-op, Heartland, and all those are basically fighting to get as much area as they can with that. So I guess that's kind of where I'm at on this. But like I said, I've seen all this stuff for the last 40 years just gradually going on and getting more and more and more concentrated.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I think that's our folks who had some remarks ready to go and prepared, but we are have plenty of time to continue the conversation. So if you would like to come forward and talk about your concerns as they deal with issues that you've heard this morning or that the Federal Trade Commission has been working on, we'd be happy to hear from you as well. Hi, please go ahead.
Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Carberry, and I'm a son of a large animal veterinarian. Other people have called me a son of a something else, but this is a story about Earl Butts. Some people called him Rusty Butts, and he was the Secretary of Agriculture under Richard Milhouse Nixon. And he said regarding farming, we need to get big or we need to get out. Well, unfortunately, we listened. We got real big. We got real big in every sector of agriculture. And since 1980, we've lost over 500,000 farms in the United States. And in every sector of farming, we've gotten big, we've consolidated. We've heard it all today, commodity crops, corn, soybeans, seed industry, fertilizer industry, confinement industry, hogs, eggs, chickens, beef, sheep. It's touched every meat and commodity sector in our agriculture commodity. Slaughterhouses, vertical integration, JBS, Tyson, lack of medium-sized and small processing, biofuels industry. I was talking to you earlier about the Chinese finger traps. If people don't know a Chinese finger trap, you put one finger in and other finger in the other side and a little bamboo thing and you can't get your fingers out. Well, the agricultural industry is like a double Chinese finger trap. Biofuels, corn, beans on one side, CAFO industry on the other side, slaughterhouses, and you put them all four, the fingers in, and you can't get them apart, not even with a crowbar. They're so integrally locked, and they're all consolidated, and the whole industry is consolidated, and we've heard about John Deere. And what are the ramifications to Iowa? We've got the worst water quality in the country. We've got the second highest cancer rates in the country, and the only state where the cancer is increasing. We've got the worst economy in the United States in a report that just came out this last week. This is the high cost of getting big. Iowa is now a sacrifice zone. We're an extraction state. This whole concept of we feed the world is a bunch of hog crap, literally. We can't even feed ourselves. It's been said that Iowa imports more of its own table food than any other state in the union because we don't grow food here. We grow feed for the hogs, the chickens, and the gas tanks. But we can do it better. We can have a more sustainable and regenerative and organic farming systems that supports independent family farms and communities and rural communities in Iowa. We have 99 counties in this state. 84 of them are losing population. And if we supported a real rural economic development system that supported independent family farmers and growing food, we could rebuild our communities, rebuild our counties, and have a really sustainable agricultural system. But part of that has to be the FTC and breaking up these monopolies across the board. Thank you.
I thank you for sharing that. One quick reflection and reaction. So one of the things I learned in this job is how hard it is, just how many people it takes to stop a merger. And the thing you need to know that I think makes our staff so special is, we'll send info. Let me tell you a quick story about the program, I'll get into if I can. So $24 billion merger, I think you said. They spent $1 billion in fees, legal fees, okay? The budget of the FTC is like $300 million. And by the way, the FTC returns almost all of that, and you used to, until the law changed, return more than that in terms to the American people. But so you're looking at just in the fees the companies pay to their lawyers is 2x what the whole budget of the Federal Trade Commission. Okay, so we were in coalition with a couple state attorneys general. All right. They're even more leanly staffed than we are. And so we have a team of maybe 11 lawyers, 14 lawyers, something like that, a couple of paralegals. That is a massive team at the Federal Trade Commission. Most cases, 2 lawyers, maybe a paralegal, maybe, right? Most cases, 1 lawyer. First day in court, it's polite to, you go and you try to say hi to the other side. You want to have a working relationship with the other side, right? And so one of the things about FTC that's a great thing about working there is you can be a young lawyer and you will get court experience, right? You go to one of these big firms, you are dotting I's and crossing T's for the partner for like 5 years before you see the inside of the court. And so there is this, I wouldn't call him a kid, he's not a kid, but he was a young lawyer, 2 years out of law school, talking to this other partner on the other side. The partner probably made, we don't know, but if he made average, he made a couple $1 million a year. All right, this guy probably makes $150,000, which is a great salary, right? But that gives you a sense of it. And so they start talking about, trial's tough because you're away from your family, you don't know how long it's going to take. And so the lawyer for the other side, the corporate lawyer goes, oh yeah, how'd you pack for this? And the guy's talking, oh, I did this, and the guy said, yeah, I had to pack 11 suits, for this. And my favorite thing is our guy had one suit. He was wearing it. And he wore it for the entirety of the trial. And this guy has one suit, one objection after objection before this other lawyer. And I'm pretty sure, I'm not confident, but I'm pretty sure it's this one guy who got out from, I think it was a Kroger pricing executive, the fact that during COVID, they were taking their milk and their eggs, and they were looking at inflation, and then not just pricing up, as you can understand, but they were adding on top of it. Something that some people call greedflation, which we were told during the pandemic was fake. That's not really happening, but I'm digressing here. What I'm getting at is the amount of time it takes to stop a merger that has not yet happened is massive. To undo a merger that has already happened is gargantuan. It is something that kind of happens once in a legal generation, right? Right now, the FTC is trying to do it with Meta's acquisition of Insta and WhatsApp. Yeah. It happened in an earlier generation around AT&T, and so what is the lesson from this? It's this. Something really interesting just happened in Arkansas. We haven't talked here about PBMs, the pharmacy middlemen. They are the meat processors of our healthcare industry, right? Because there's just 3 of them, as opposed to 4, I guess. But they set the terms of everything, okay? And the PBMs, the way they've gotten their nose in this game is they own pharmacies. Okay, so it's a health insurer owns a pharmacy middleman, owns a pharmacy. It used to be that the insurers were independent of the pharmacies, so they didn't have a dog in the fight. And so they couldn't preference one pharmacy over another, but now they do. And you better believe that what's happening is people are coming into pharmacies with prescriptions for cancer medicine. And they're walking to an independent and they're being told, sorry, you got to go home and wait for that cancer medicine for your child in the mail because it has to come from the pharmacy that we know. Okay? And what did the folks in Arkansas do? They didn't sue. They didn't send lawyers to court to stop a future merger, although they might. They didn't go into court to break up this. They passed a law in their state legislature that said it is illegal to be a vertically integrated pharmacy in that state. I think so. And so, for me, what this reveals is there is a legislative strategy that doesn't involve us lawyers, and I'm not saying we shouldn't try to stop mergers. We should. I'm not saying we shouldn't try to break up the companies. We should. But I think the folks in Arkansas opened up an avenue of a way to challenge these guys through the state legislature that, and of course, there's going to be all these, this response, and they're going to cry, CVS is suing, so it'll go to the courts eventually, but I just want to say you have not just your state attorney general, but also your legislators who can cause some good trouble here. And so that's another avenue I want to highlight because it's a lot easier oftentimes to go through the legislature. Thank you.
Please come up if you have something to say, and I'll hold the microphone. I do, please, don't come on up, George. I'm going to interject one. Someone had given me a question earlier. Yes, I know it might be a sensitive situation.
It's all good. Please.
You talked about the legality
Yeah.
that your situation
Yeah.
is dealing with now. First, they wanted to know any updates on how the courts are handling that situation.
Yeah.
And what timeline you expect to
Yeah.
hear more. And I'll understand if you, by
No,
legal.
I'd love to be candid about this. Although there are some things I shouldn't elaborate on. There was a Supreme Court ruling about someone else who was situated in a not dissimilar way. Sorry, I'm going to start speaking like a lawyer now because it has to do with the court case. So the National Labor Relations Board and I actually won't say not dissimilar. I'll just say something happened in another case. I'm not saying whether it's similar or not. Where the question was, can you sit in your seat and have access to all your things and be able to do your job while your case winds its way up to the Supreme Court? And in that case, the Supreme Court said no. So that is what it is. I shall not comment on it further. But I want to be very honest with you, which is I'm a dad. You know, I got a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old at home. I got a wife, you know, who is also a federal employee at the NIH. I was telling Josh, you know, she is a psychologist for kids with cancer, and so she actually has an important job in the family. And so, you know, I at the outset had a budget, you know, for I thought this might happen, so I socked away, you know, X amount of money. But when you get one of these offices, all your laundry is out there, and you can tell I am not one of the wealthy ones. And so there may come a day very soon where I you know, as a dad, which is my first job, I have to say, you know, I'm going to stay part of this lawsuit, but I probably can't continue doing this work. Yeah. And so, but the thing I want to stress is, you know, we were talking about battles and wars, right? This is a battle, and we are talking about the war, right? We are talking about that, and I think the single best part of this job is right now party matters a little bit because of what's happened, because they tried to fire both Democrats. But the best part of this job is I go meet with you guys here in Ankeny. I go and meet with, you know, pharmacists in Knoxville. I go and meet with wholesalers, you know, on the outskirts of Salt Lake City, Utah. No one cares what party you're from. No one cares whether it's a D or R or an independent. They just care that you're there. They care that you're there to help. And I will say that no matter what is happening in politics, my sense of it, our sense of it, I think, is more and more people are waking up to the fact that maybe these lines about left or right don't matter as much as the top versus everyone else. And I'll just say one last thing, you know, Sean, where are you? You were talking about right to repair, right, in your combine, and the fact that a monopolist, you know, makes it so that you can't decide when it's your first day of harvest. They decide when it's your first day of harvest, right? You were locked out of the system. So I had a meeting with a bunch of rideshare drivers in Manhattan, and I met with them not in a building like this. I met with them in a law school lecture hall, right? And what were they talking about? These guys had invested not $500,000 or $100,000 or $1 million, and you can tell I have no idea how much a combine costs, but I know it isn't cheap. These guys had invested $60,000 as an individual. That's a lot of money, right? They didn't have a business, right? They just had themselves. So that's a lot of money for them as well. And getting the nicest car for a rideshare, and so they could get those more expensive fares. They were waking up in the morning, and they'd open up their screen, locked out, right? They would drive 8 hours in a day to put food on the table. Now they had to drive 13 hours. And oftentimes they noticed that when they stopped driving for a moment, use the bathroom, get a bite to eat, they get locked out. So you had guys going 13 hours driving, until not stopping. And you can guess what happens to your kidneys if you do that for 13 hours, not using the bathroom. And so if you look at red versus blue, if you look at rural versus urban, right? Business owner versus worker, right? You guys could not be more different. But if you look at the fight you're fighting, where you have one company, two companies who decide your ability to provide for your family and run your business, you guys could not be more similar, and you have everything in common. And I think that more and more people are waking up to the fact that all these people telling you, you could not be more different. I don't know if they're right. And I increasingly look at this as the top versus everyone else. Yeah, so that gives me a little bit of, sorry for my soliloquy, sir. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm George Naylor. I farm in Greene County. This is my 49th year, and my knee tells me it might be the end of the road. I'm not sure I'll make it through 50. But anyway, and I guess I think we need to take a longer view of what's reality economically in this country, and where to start. You know, when we think it was really callous for robust to say get big or get out. But isn't that true of every industry in the United States? It's get big or get out. And you do it either, it just naturally happens, or you do it with a lot of political clout, which we know big business has had for a long time. And, you know, my dad quit farming in 1962 because in 1953, the promise of parity was broken. And so farm prices stagnated up until when he quit farming in 61. But the price of our standard of cost of living and the cost of farming kept going up. So he said, no, I can't do this anymore. He was 55. Anyway, my grandfather mined coal in Greene County until the mine caved in on his tools one night and became a farmer. But he had to endure the Great Depression. So let's look at the Great Depression a minute. When the New Deal came in, they published a publication called Achieving a Balanced Agriculture. And they pointed out, and I don't have the exact figures, but I'll give you some that are close that will illustrate the reality of this kind of economy. What happened was farm implement output dropped like 25%, 25 or 30%, but the prices of farm implements only dropped maybe 5%. Whereas with agricultural products, they didn't hardly drop at all in terms of production, but the prices dropped like 30%. Okay, so you can see that this problem has been a long-term problem that's inherent in the way markets work in a market economy. And so the real question is, what is the role of a government in a democratic society? Now just think for a minute. We haven't increased the minimum wage since 2009. So just think of all the times that some poor working person had to go to the boss and beg for a raise, but he didn't get it. And so until now, this inflation has maybe raised their wages, but that's irrelevant because so has everything increased. And so really, once again, it's the ratio between what you get and what you have to pay for. And that's always applied to agriculture too, no matter how much monopoly there is. I mean, farmers have been getting screwed for maybe centuries when we had all kinds of packing plants, when we had all kinds of implement dealers. So, like I said, it's a question of what a democratic society can expect from their government. And as long as we think that maybe the government ought to stay out of agriculture, stay out of determining how many packing plants we have and all that, it's going to be the same thing, and we're going to have an unsustainable agriculture. And Michael Pollan says, well, unsustainable means it can't go on. Okay, well, so tell me, when is it that we will all recognize that this can't go on because it is so horrendous? Most of us know it's all horrendous already, but so what is it going to be like in 10 or 20 years?
No, Alvaro, maybe you want to comment on that.
No, please go on.
If you want to keep going.
Well, no, I just think that, our problems are much more ingrained in the way the economy works. It's not monopoly. because that's the nature of the economy. It's also the political influence of monopoly, of big business. And so until we deal with this, we're really talking about, rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic.
Yeah.
Sure. And Mr. George, I appreciate everything you said, and I think it's valuable for you to say, look, we've had problems, centuries this has been happening, whether or not there's this policy or not. I think what I've seen is that there was a window in which the government was working very hard to level the playing field for smaller producers, smaller retailers, smaller business, vis-a-vis the larger business. And that window maybe was, somewhere between the 30s and the late 70s. You had a more aggressive enforcement of antitrust. You had FTC used to have regional offices, spread many more regional offices across the country. A lot of those were shuttered. They were bringing cases in regional markets. Nowadays, you're packaging up a case and sending it up. You got to make the case that, this is a case with national importance. And there was a eagerness to defend the smaller producers that hasn't been felt, that has been renewed, but has gone away. And was that world perfect? Absolutely not. But I think that the absence of that, the end of that approach, has contributed to the hollowing out that we're seeing. I think, Mike, you were saying 84 of the 99 counties are losing population. So, but let me be honest. Of course, if we change on a dime and we go back to that aggressive posture, which I think we did for a couple of years, is it going to fix everything? Absolutely not. I think it's just a contributor. But I 100% agree with you. Things like the minimum wage. I have so Josh, I was telling you about my friend growing up who was a tennis player. Now I kind of alluded that he's hit some hard times. He works full time at a Walgreens, a buddy of mine. Great job, but he works really, really hard, and he works full time. He still has to get benefits from the state in order to make ends meet, right? And so this is a guy extremely capable, doesn't shirk on a single thing, and he needs benefits to feed his family. And what is that? That is a subsidy from all of you, right, as taxpayers, to this billion-dollar company that he works for, right? Because if the law required that company to pay my friend a fair wage, he would not have to get benefits. And so, I see structurally throughout the economy so many things where if you're big and powerful, all's great. We're going to subsidize you. We're going to help you. Whereas if you're a small producer, a small farmer, even a medium-sized farmer, nothing breaks your way. So absolutely, it is a whole society-wide problem, and I hear you.
Well, we are so grateful for your sharing with us today. It's been a fantastic opportunity. I know these conversations are going to continue after this meeting. Will continue. One thing we wanted to share with you is we are so grateful for that active role that Federal Trade Commission has played in rural America, has stepped up their work to an unprecedented level until recent turn of events. And we are very grateful for you and for your colleagues taking action on so many of these things where we've seen a lot of inaction across our different levels of government. Considering all the challenges that we've talked about today and some of the other aspects that all come into that and how it impacts our communities, what gives you the optimism to keep moving forward? You said you were going to move ahead with this rule, whether it's in your your
Yeah.
current role
Right.
or in new roles? What gives you optimism as you look ahead in trying to address the issues that working people have in our society? What gives you the most optimism?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. It's what I was talking about earlier with top versus the rest and left versus right. You graciously read my bio, which talks about how for a lot of my, I'm an immigrant. I was born in Peru. I dedicated a lot of my life to trying to help working immigrants in this country. And I'll be very honest. So I was during the first presidency of President Trump, I was very, very critical of him. And as a result, I was elected. Vice President Harris had to travel to the Capitol not once, not twice, but 3 times to cast a tie-breaking vote in my favor. And I had, and I understand it. I had, for example, I had a conversation with a senator, a wonderful man, a Republican from the South, deep South, and we were talking about social media and how it is affecting teenagers, and this has been one of my projects of trying to crack open what every single parent will tell you. Oh, this is a real issue, And we had a 30-minute conversation. He says, "You know what, Alvaro? I like you. I look forward to working for you, but I can't vote for you because of what I've done and rights and stuff like that." And then separately, and then you come into this job. And the best part of this job is how broad it is, and you start seeing that number one, no one cares what party you are, they just care you're there to help. And also you see how some of the same dynamics of, the way that some of those immigrant workers that I care so much about were treated at chicken processing plants on the eastern shore of Maryland, right, are replicated in the way the farmers are being treated who own those chickens, or at least not even necessarily own the chicks, because they don't even own the chicks. How you see that. You see how this dynamic of the powerful billionaire company treats small business, not just the workers, but the small business, but the small producer. That is what I'm hopeful about. I'm hopeful that that more and more people are seeing things that way, and yeah, that fundamental dynamic, I think people are waking up to, and you're starting to see more people talk about that on what you could call the left and the right, and visiting with folks like you here in Ankeny, visiting with people similarly situated, whether in grocery or pharmacy or in franchise, for example, has completely changed the way I see these things, and I think that's happening to a lot more people. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Very good.
Thank you.
Well, everyone, give a warm thank you to Alvaro, Bedoya,